HOA Karen tried hosting water aerobics in my pool, so I invited a sumo team. Part 1. Opening Chaos. Karen's Whistle War begins. It all started at exactly 6:47 a.m. on what should have been a peaceful Saturday morning. 1 second, I was deep in a beautiful dream. The next, I was yanked awake by the shrill blast of a whistle coming from my backyard. Not once, not twice, but again. Sharp, rhythmic bursts that rattled the windows. Still half asleep, hair a mess, and, wearing nothing but boxers, I stumbled to the back door. Yawning, rubbing my eyes, I opened it and froze mid-step. There, in the middle of my private pool, was Karen, my nosy, clipboard-wielding, self-appointed HOA nemesis. Now, sporting a glittery swimsuit and a waterproof whistle around her neck, leading what looked like a full-on water aerobics class. A dozen gray-haired seniors marched obediently in the shallow end, splashing and grunting in synchronized chaos, like they were training for the Senior Olympics. For a few seconds, my brain refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. Karen twirled her whistle like a baton, pointed to the sky like a battle commander, and bellowed, "Hydrate! Flex! Push those glutes, ladies!" The elderly troop responded in unison, arms flapping, neon swim caps bobbing like rubber ducks. My pool, the one I paid for, cleaned, maintained, had somehow been transformed into the HOA's newest community wellness center. And guess who wasn't informed? Karen finally noticed me standing there, arms crossed, mouth hanging open. "Oh, you're up. Perfect timing," she chirped, brushing a wet strand of hair from her forehead. "We've been meaning to discuss adding your pool to the HOA wellness schedule. It's a real community booster." Before I could even form words, one of the seniors whispered loudly, "Karen, he doesn't look thrilled." Karen just gave a bright, patronizing laugh, waving a hand like she was dismissing a tantrum. "Oh, he's just grumpy before coffee. Aren't you, sweetheart?" Grumpy? I wasn't grumpy. I was flabbergasted. I had never agreed to this. I had never received a notice. I had no clue what kind of HOA twilight zone I had woken up into. But it was clear Karen had orchestrated a full-blown aquatic invasion while I was sleeping, both literally and figuratively. I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay calm, but firm. "Karen, this is my private property. You and your aquatic army need to leave. Now." Her smile faded slightly, but returned, wider and even more condescending. "Oh, sweetie, you must not have read the updated HOA newsletter. Page 6, Pool Sharing Initiative. We had a vote last Tuesday. It passed unanimously." She grinned like a cat who just swallowed a canary. "Well, except for your vote, we counted your non-response as an abstention. It's very democratic." I stared at her, stunned. "That's not how voting works, Karen. And what in the world is a pool sharing initiative?" She gestured proudly to the splashing seniors. "Health and wellness for the elderly. Some can't afford pool memberships, and your property is perfect for it. The HOA decided it made sense to pool our resources." She even winked. I felt something inside me snap. "Karen, this is trespassing. You need to leave, now." Her expression hardened. "We're not going anywhere," she said sweetly. "If you want to file a complaint, take it up with the board. But let me warn you, interfering with a senior wellness event could be seen as obstruction of elder rights." I stood there, too stunned to speak. Karen had officially gone full bureaucratic supervillain. Last week, she was just the lady who counted how many weeds were in my lawn. Now, she was leading a senior citizen boot camp in my backyard and quoting made-up bylaws like some third-rate dictator. I turned on my heel, marched back inside, and grabbed my phone. If Karen wanted a battle, I was ready to give her one. Part 2, Rising Tensions. The HOA Cult Takes Over. The next morning, I didn't even need an alarm clock. The screech of a whistle, sharp as ever, jolted me upright. Still groggy, I shuffled to the window, coffee cup in hand. And there they were. Karen, proudly sporting a sparkling visor and waterproof clipboard, was already stationed by my pool. Her seniors trickled in, chatting, laughing, some even carrying muffins, like it was their personal country club. Karen didn't even bother greeting me this time. She simply blew the whistle and barked, "March in, ladies! Hydrate, breathe, live it!" And just like that, the HOA aquatic cult was back in full force. I didn't say a word. I just turned around, went inside, and began gathering evidence. If Karen thought she could turn my backyard into a water park, she was about to find out otherwise. I scoured the HOA website. Nothing about a pool sharing program. Checked the community calendar. No mention of Karen's boot camp. Even the flyer she taped to my mailbox, Water Wednesdays with Karen, wasn't officially listed anywhere. All I found was that tiny, sneaky paragraph buried at the end of the last HOA newsletter. A vague blurb about temporary community water access stuck next to an ad for fertilizer. It wasn't just shady. It was practically a heist. I started making calls. Dave, the quiet, pizza-bribed board member, was the first to pick up. When I told him about Karen's water aerobics regime, he groaned so loud it rattled through the speaker. "Man, I thought she was bluffing," he muttered. "I never voted on any pool stuff. We were supposed to be approving new signs." When I asked for proof, he hesitated, then said, "Actually, yeah, I've got the email chain somewhere. She CC'd me a while back, said something about a pilot program, but there was never any official vote." He forwarded the emails. And when I read them, everything clicked. Karen had spent months planning this. She called it a community integration initiative, inspired by shared economy models, whatever that means. And the best part? In one email, she wrote, "If no one objects formally, I'll assume consensus by default. No votes, no signatures. Just Karen. Declaring herself queen of the pool by technicality. Classic Karen." The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. She wasn't clueless. She was calculated. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a coordinated takeover. Later that day, I stopped by the local print shop, made 10 hard copies of every damning email, every photo, every flyer. If Karen wanted to play dirty, I was coming armed with facts. When I got home, a new sign had magically appeared on my front gate. "Community pool access, fitness zone. Please be respectful and quiet after class hours." My blood boiled. She wasn't just stealing my pool. She was branding it. But Karen wasn't done yet. That evening, a man in khakis and a city compliance badge knocked on my door. Apparently, someone, gee, I wonder who Dell had reported me for operating an unlicensed fitness center. I nearly laughed. Instead, I calmly showed him the footage, the flyers, the emails. His eyebrows shot up so high I thought they'd leave his forehead. "You're not running this?" he asked. "No," I said bitterly. "I'm being invaded by a whistle-happy maniac with a dream." He shook his head, scribbled something in his notebook, and handed me a copy of the report. "You might want to file a cease and desist," he suggested before leaving with a muttered, "Good luck. You're gonna need it." I realized something chilling. Karen wasn't just playing neighborly games anymore. She was trying to flip the narrative, paint herself as the wellness hero. And me, the grumpy villain. It was smart. Dirty, but smart. And worst of all, it was starting to work. During my evening walk, a neighbor actually smiled at me and said, "Hey, I think it's so great you're helping the seniors stay active." I blinked at her, stunned. "You mean what Karen's doing? Without my permission? On my property?" Her smile froze. "Oh, I thought you volunteered." That's when it hit me. Karen wasn't just trespassing. She was winning the PR war. The seniors adored her. The neighbors thought I was the Grinch of fitness. And meanwhile, every morning, the whistle kept blowing. March, splash, hydrate, breathe, on and on, until I felt like I was living inside a nightmare, choreographed by a woman who thought no meant thanks for the suggestion. I knew then. This wasn't just about my pool anymore. It was about taking back my life, my home, my sanity. And if Karen wanted to turn my backyard into a battleground, I was ready to fight fire with something much, much bigger. Part 3. The Master Plan. Sumo Squad to the rescue. At that night, sitting on my porch, I stared out at the still shimmering pool and plotted. Karen thought she had me trapped, thought she'd built a whole aquatic empire while I just stood by blinking. But if she wanted to turn my backyard into a public stage, maybe it was time I gave her a performance she'd never forget. Not a legal battle, not boring flyers or angry HOA meetings. I needed something bigger, louder, something that would flip the entire neighborhood's loyalty in one spectacular, ridiculous splash. And that's when fate delivered the perfect idea, right into my lap. Scrolling mindlessly through my phone, a video popped up, a festival in Tokyo, featuring a sumo wrestling team doing synchronized swimming. I almost dropped my coffee from laughing. Enormous, cheerful sumo wrestlers belly flopping into a pool, creating waves big enough to flood a parking lot, spinning, leaping, splashing in glorious chaos. And just like that, the idea was born. If Karen wanted a community fitness event, I was about to deliver her the event of a lifetime. I reached out to the group, who happened to be on a cultural exchange tour, just one city over. When I explained the situation to Kenji, their team leader, he laughed so hard he nearly dropped his phone. "Hey, dictators, we know the type," he said between chuckles. "We'll help you. With big splashes." We agreed. They'd come next Saturday, right in the middle of Karen's beloved 7 a.m. class. It was perfect. A full squad of 6 sumo wrestlers, giant, joyful, and ready to turn my pool into ground zero for Whistlegeddon. All I had to do was wait and prepare. In the days leading up to D-Day, Karen's operation only grew. Every morning the whistle blew. Every morning seniors marched, flexed, splashed. Karen even started handing out little badges to her wellness officers, cheap plastic tags printed in Comic Sans that said things like Hydration Hero and Community Champion. It would have been hilarious if it wasn't happening on my property. And the propaganda, oh, the propaganda. Karen gave speeches before every class about the generosity of shared spaces, the beauty of community resources, and how selfish property owners needed to grow hearts as big as their backyards. She wasn't just running a class anymore. She was running a movement. Neighbors started bringing baked goods. Some seniors started calling my pool the people's pool. It was insanity. But deep down, I smiled. Let them build their little kingdom. Let them feel safe. Let them think they had won, because they had no idea. A tidal wave was coming, and it wasn't just going to knock over a few lawn chairs. It was going to sink the whole ship. Part 4, the final showdown, Karen's downfall. Saturday arrived, and the air buzzed with an electricity I could almost taste. Today was the day. The sun hadn't even fully risen when I heard it, that familiar, obnoxious blast of Karen's whistle cutting through the morning calm. I sipped my coffee, grinning, as I peered through the curtains. There she was, Karen, whistle at her lips, clipboard in hand, neon leggings stretched to their limit, leading her battalion of seniors into formation. Some of them were even wearing matching t-shirts now. HOA Wellness Warriors, they said, complete with a cartoon dolphin doing a high kick. I almost felt bad. Almost. Because today, Karen was about to meet her match. Right on cue, I heard the rumble of tires. I stepped onto the porch just in time to see a large white van pull up, and out spilled 6 enormous sumo wrestlers, each one grinning like Christmas had come early. Kenji led the charge, raising his arm and shouting, "Today, we splash!" The seniors froze. Karen's whistle slipped from her mouth and dangled at her chest. Before she could even sputter a protest, the Sumo Squad stomped into my backyard, each one bowing respectfully, then cannonballing into the pool with earth-shaking splashes that sent tidal waves crashing over the patio. The seniors shrieked and scrambled, their synchronized lines destroyed in an instant. Neon swim caps bobbed helplessly like abandoned pool toys. Beach balls flew into the neighbor's yard. And Karen, poor, furious Karen, looked like she was about to combust. "This is an outrage!" she screeched, soaked from head to toe. Kenji simply smiled, floated by on his back like a majestic manatee, and waved. The wrestlers began their routine, synchronized belly flops, sumo squats underwater, slow-motion water ballet that sent waves lapping over the fence. It was chaos, it was beautiful, and it was all perfectly legal. Because after all, Karen herself had declared my pool a community fitness zone, hadn't she? The seniors didn't know what to do. Half of them fled. The other half just clung to the edges of the pool in stunned silence. Karen tried to rally them, blowing her whistle furiously. But it was no use. Every time she raised her voice, another wrestler would launch a cannonball the size of a small tsunami. At one point, Karen actually screamed, "You people are splashing on democracy." Someone, bless their soul, caught it on video. By the time the sumo team climbed out, dripping and laughing, the backyard looked like it had survived a hurricane. Karen stood there, trembling with rage, clutching her soaked clipboard like it was a lifeboat. I simply smiled, waved, and said, "Thanks for respecting community fitness, Karen." She opened her mouth, probably to unleash some ridiculous legal threat, but no words came out. Only rage. Pure, helpless rage. And as the sumo team packed up and high-fived each other, neighbors peeked over fences, some laughing openly, others just shaking their heads in disbelief. The legend of the great sumo splash had officially been born. And Karen? She wasn't just defeated. She was humiliated, drenched, and dethroned. But of course, Karen wasn't the kind to go quietly. Oh no. Later that afternoon, I found a glittery pink notice duct-taped to my front door. A pitiful attempt at spinning the story. "Effective immediately," it read, "due to health and safety concerns, the HOA Wellness Program is suspended at your residence. Aggressive aquatic practices will no longer be tolerated." At the bottom, scribbled in angry cursive, it said, "Nice try. See you at the meeting." Pathetic. Karen was calling an emergency HOA board meeting to try and punish me. But this time, I was ready. I gathered all the evidence, the fake newsletters, the doctored flyers, the city compliance report, the videos. And yes, even the glorious footage of Karen shrieking at 6 sumo wrestlers. Operation Chlorine Freedom was officially a go. Part 5. Epilogue, Peace Returns, and a Splashy Farewell. Monday evening arrived. and the community center buzzed with nervous energy. I walked into the emergency HOA meeting carrying a neat fat binder labeled in bold letters, Operation Chlorine Freedom. Karen was already there, sitting stiffly at the head of the table wearing a sharp blue pantsuit, her clipboard resting in front of her like a weapon. She didn't look at me. She looked through me. The room was packed. Neighbors lined the walls, whispering. Some curious, others obviously fed up. Karen cleared her throat, stood, and launched into a wild speech about community rights, cultural confusion, and the emotional trauma inflicted by rogue aquatic disturbances. She waved around a pathetic petition, barely 5 shaky signatures on it, and quoted completely fake HOA statutes like Clause 8C of Neighborhood Aquatic Civility. For almost 10 minutes, she ranted. When she finally finished, the room fell silent. And then, Dave, one of the saner board members, motioned to me. I stood up, took a deep breath, and smiled. Let's begin with the truth. For the next 10 minutes, I calmly, methodically, walked everyone through Karen's entire operation. The faked newsletters, the fake vote, the unauthorized signage, the bogus complaint to the city. I handed out printed copies of the evidence. I even, for good measure, played the security footage of Karen bossing seniors around my pool like a deranged drill sergeant in sequins. Laughter broke out. Then, the pièce de résistance. I played the clip of Karen shrieking, "You people are splashing on democracy!" Someone in the back actually snorted from laughing so hard. Karen's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. She slammed her clipboard on the table and screamed, "This is a mockery of governance." But Dave, calm as ever, cut her off. "Karen," he said, "you acted without board approval. You trespassed. You fabricated votes. You filed false reports. You abused your position." He turned to the other board members. "I motion to have Karen permanently removed from her HOA duties, effective immediately." Silence. Then, one by one, every hand went up. Even her own loyal senior sidekick hesitated, glanced around, and reluctantly raised her hand. Karen gasped, sputtered, grabbed her glittery clipboard, and stormed out of the room, muttering something about ungrateful peasants. The meeting ended with cheers, clapping, and more than a few jokes about inviting the sumo team back for a summer luau. As I walked home under the stars, the neighborhood felt lighter, like a great oppressive fog had finally lifted. When I got to my backyard, I just stood there, staring at the still blue water, listening to the sweet, sweet sound of silence. No whistles, no chants, no splashes, just peace. Real, undisturbed peace. For the first time in weeks, the pool was mine again. The days that followed were strangely quiet. Karen, once the self-appointed queen of the HOA, vanished like a bad memory. Her blue visor disappeared. Her early morning patrols stopped. Rumors swirled. And then, one glorious afternoon, a massive U-Haul truck pulled into her driveway. I watched from my porch, savoring the moment, as movers carried out the last remains of Karen's aquatic empire. A battered inflatable flamingo, a stack of laminated schedules, a rusted megaphone. She saw me watching. Our eyes locked. Her glare could have melted steel, but I simply raised my coffee mug in a silent toast. No words. No need. She disappeared into the truck without so much as a goodbye, and slowly, painfully, the U-Haul rolled down the street and out of our lives forever. Of course, I had to celebrate properly. The next morning, just after sunrise, 6 familiar giant figures marched into my backyard one last time. The Sumo Squad was back, this time not as warriors, but as honored guests. I had set up a small breakfast buffet by the pool, coffee, pastries, fruit, and protein bars the size of bricks. Kenji raised a juice box high in the air and shouted something in Japanese. The others cheered, and one by one they launched themselves into the pool in a glorious symphony of belly flops. Waves crashed against the fence. The patio shook. It was messy. It was ridiculous. It was perfect. Even the neighbor's cat, watching from the fence post, looked impressed. At one point, one of the moving guys, still loading boxes from Karen's abandoned house, peeked over the fence, jaw hanging open. "Dude," he said, "is that a sumo team?" I just grinned. "Pool warming party," I said. He laughed and nodded toward Karen's empty house. "She's gonna lose her mind when she sees this." Too late, buddy. She was already gone, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the neighborhood felt whole again, free, peaceful, and maybe just a little bit splashier. Today, that signed photo of the Sumo Squad hangs proudly in my kitchen, a daily reminder that sometimes the best way to defeat entitlement isn't anger. It's joy. It's laughter. It's standing your ground and knowing when to unleash a six-man tidal wave to protect what's yours. Karen may have left, but her legend remains, a cautionary tale and an inside joke. Whenever someone mentions her name, we all glance at my pool, grin, and say the same thing. Not again.